Good afternoon. It is Friday, and at least here in the state of Michigan, we are back to winter. We had a lovely reprieve. Somehow going to California to the MD&M trade show actually made the weather here better. I'm not quite sure how that works, but that does appear to be what occurred. But we're back down below freezing with all of the well, there were at least some nice snowflakes today. So I hope it's nice where you are, at least for whatever your definition of nice is. So we're looking forward to a great show today. We've got some news items, some a little surprising, some maybe not so surprising. One from Europe where, oh boy, it was about time. We've been reporting since November that the medical device regulation in Europe has been nothing but trouble, and they're finally doing something about it. So we'll talk about that in a minute, as well as my interview with Mark Ignash and Stephen Rapundalo from the MD&M trade show last week, all coming up on MedTech Crossroads. So welcome back. We're telling you all about the events happening this year as they come to us. But first, a reminder, MedTech Crossroads is now on Spotify. You can also get to it on Podbean as well. We're hoping to get that up on Apple Podcasts as well in the not too distant future, but episodes are now going up weekly to Spotify. So you can look for MedTech Crossroads and Into Being LLC there and find all of these if you'd like to listen to them. You don't have to see my face then. You can just listen. It's just the audio. Nothing better has ever happened. Upcoming events. We cull these from various calendars in the local ecosystem: MEDC, MichBio, Project MedTech, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Ann Arbor Spark, and the Regulatory Affairs Professionals Society, to name just a few. Biomedical Innovation 101 has been going on, Fast Forward Medical Innovation and the Department of Internal Medicine at the University of Michigan. There's one left coming up February 22nd, Next Steps and Commercialization Resources. If you're watching online, scan the QR code, otherwise innovation.medicine.umich.edu. For all of those, they've had about 6 of those. Our own Adrian Harris was on last week's installment of that. The Regulatory Affairs Professional Society Software as a Medical Device Conference virtual program happening 21st of February and 22nd. So that should be a great event. Also one on cybersecurity coming up here at the end of the month. Not so much that people are going to be flying over to Germany with high regularity for this one, but I sort of left it in here because cybersecurity is such a thing. It's such a growing issue. And FDA is going to have to deal with this. They're dealing with it, but it's a huge issue. So I want this to be on people's radar. The legislative fly-ins are happening with AdvaMed in Washington, D.C., with MichBio. Stephen Rapundalo is taking folks out to Capitol Hill to talk to lawmakers. It should be some good interactions. Why is this important? You know, I think 20 years ago, when I was new to this industry, the idea that politics had anything to do with our creation of wonderful medical devices just was not on my radar. And many times we as companies could get by without thinking too hard about it. Oftentimes research dollars were plentiful. And while the VC market was still nascent, there was funding available for good ideas. As we've gone on in this industry, we start to realize that an awful lot of the roadblocks aren't ones of getting someone to like your product or even getting the product to work. It's roadblocks put up by government that have to be resolved ultimately through changes in the government. Congress has to act much of the time for us to keep doing what we're doing or to do it better. You'll hear a lot as we talk about the FDA about things like 1345, which is an international consent standard for medical device quality systems. Why don't we have that integrated in the US? Well, the good folks at CDRH do all that they can, But guess what? It's going to take an act of Congress to really, really change that, among other things. So that's why these things are important. That's why talking to your lawmakers, helping them to understand what pressures even your little startup is up against, your research institution, your venture capital firm, and its investments. So this is a good thing. Two of them happening coming up in March. MDR by the numbers. Well, this the urgency of this one is going down as of yesterday, but there is going to be a free webcast on the 23rd of February. Medical device regulation in Europe. Cold hard numbers. How is the implementation going? Here's the answer: not real good. The A2 Biosocial. Let's try that again. The A2 Biosocial. Thank you, Matthew Himes. Thank you, MichBio. Thank you, Ann Arbor Spark. I believe My Lead Consulting is also a sponsor on that. Tuesday, March 7th, 5 to 7 p.m., Pretzel Bell in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Great time to get together in person with the community. And the Resi Conference, digital version, coming up March 14th through 16th. Early stage investments, connecting with investors. So great opportunity there. I was out at Resi in San Francisco in January. MedCon Conference. Oh, these are exciting for me. April 24th through 27th. I know it's on my calendar. Hope it's on yours. MedCon Conference coming to Columbus, Ohio, co-sponsored by the FDA. If you're looking online here, you can scan the QR code. I don't have a link there otherwise for you, but I'll bet you if you Google MedCon, it's going to come up April 24th through 27th. The Innovation Summit in Dublin, Ireland, April 25th through 27th. And a new one for this week, the 2023 Michigan Life Sciences Showcase. We haven't talked to MichBio about this in detail, but they've got the Medical Device Summit, the Drug Discovery Symposium, Patient Advocacy Forum, Cannabis Science Symposium, and Digital Health Forum. QR code takes you to michbio.org. And then the AdvaMed 510K, IDE, and PMA Submissions Workshop. If you need a crash course in how to do 510Ks, IDEs, or PMAs, that might be an interesting place to be. It's a virtual workshop in between the dates of May 15th and May 25th in 3 different chunks. The Midwest Showcase from Project MedTech coming up in August in Cleveland, Ohio. The MedTech Conference, October 9th through 11th at the Anaheim Convention Center in Anaheim, California. And a startup symposium again by Project MedTech coming up in Houston, Texas, October 25th and 26th. Summits coming back to Columbus, Ohio this November. And the Eye and the Chip 2023 coming to Henry Ford later this year, October 8th through 10th. So there it is. There are the events for this week. Hope you can connect with some of those. Next up, we'll be telling you all about FDA and industry news. All right, and with that, we're coming to the topmost item of our news, which was it's always the ones that catch my eye. This nuclear medicine system by GE Healthcare. I don't know if it's just that we're paying more attention these days, or if there's more product failures happening. I think it's going to be an interesting retrospective at some point, isn't it? When we come back and look what happened with things like recalls, medical device reports, post-COVID, because a lot didn't get done during COVID. Nobody's fault here necessarily, right? But things are there. We don't know when this nuclear medicine system was made specifically, so don't read too much into it. Oh, there it is right there, April 1st, 2018 to December 16th, 2022. So, that may or may not have had anything to do. But I do wonder sometimes, right? We're not really talking about GE here. I do sort of wonder, are we going to find a lot of dropped balls during COVID? It wouldn't surprise me. But let's talk about what happened here. GE Healthcare recalls a nuclear medicine series system These are not small. These are massive systems. They are body imaging systems, right? They create images of the body to help folks assess various things, neurological disorders, cardiovascular disease. And they identified an issue, GE did, with two mechanisms that prevent uncontrolled detector movement. Okay. Risk. I want to focus on this word because we're going to talk a little bit more than just the news item today. We're going to talk a little bit about risk management and where risks get mitigated when you are a medical device company. And this is interesting. This is important. I don't really care whether you're a manufacturer or a startup device company, whether you're an investor, whether you're an entrepreneur, an inventor, whatever you are. Talking about risk is so central to this whole process that we're all engaged in. And for this, it comes back to a ball screw. Okay, so there's a ball screw, and if you don't know what a ball screw is, that's okay. It's a mechanical contraption. The point is that it is a design mitigation, and I want you to pay particular attention to that word mitigation right there, because we're going to talk about it in just a second. A design mitigation for the suspended mass of the detector. And this ball screw might not work for some reason here. Additionally, some devices are also missing a safety key. Okay, that's a bummer. That should prevent the detector from a catastrophic fall when the ball screw fails. Oh my goodness. What happens when the ball screw fails? I'm intrigued now. I'd like to know what happens when the ball screw fails. If the ball screw fails and the safety key is missing, get this. This is a half-ton detector. 1,212 pounds. Could fall, potentially crushing or trapping a patient, which may result in serious injury or death. No kidding. Half a car dropped on you is not anything. Fortunately, there have only been 8 complaints, no injuries, and no deaths. So good job catching it, GE Healthcare. Nice job. I want to take you back to this idea, though, of a design mitigation. What is this idea? I mean, this thing's not dropping on people yet, right? So that's a good thing. We're glad that the device is not dropping on people. Before we go on to the next page I want to show you, we'll just scan through here. They're talking about how they're going to mitigate it. A GE Healthcare engineer will do all these things, and they'll label it to let you know that the device is safe. You'll get a release letter. They'll correct any problems. They'll make sure that all the right things are in place. Okay, good job. If you have any questions, you can contact GE, but I'm assuming that most of us don't own nuclear medicine Series 6 and 800 systems. So why are we talking about this? Well, number one, I guess if you do run into one, you can ask them if they've got the label on the device that they fixed this. But I want to take you back to this word mitigation. What is this word mitigation? It's a really, really important word because it has to do with this thing that I'm going to show you. This comes from 14971, ISO 14971, the International Risk Management Standard. And this is so embedded in everything medical device, really worldwide. Okay? So in 14971, I'm just showing you one little chart out of it. There's this thing called a risk management plan over here. Okay, that's cool. You got to have a plan for how you're going to manage risk. You have to analyze the risks about your device. You've got to think about the intended use of the device, how it could be misused. You've got to think about the characteristics related to safety. You've got to identify hazards and hazardous situations, things that could go wrong or bad things that could happen. You need to estimate, try to quantify the risk associated with your device. You evaluate that for the whole device, and then it's time to risk control. You need to figure out how you could control it, do an options analysis. Guess what? It's far, far better to have a design that is safe than to try to make it safe after the fact. And these nuclear medicine systems, there's no shame here, but they were made safe after the fact. They said, oh, this could fall, so we're going to put a ball screw here, and that's going to make it better. Well, that's fine. And at some point, you have to apply those risk control measures. Okay? What's the risk? What's the hazard? What are we going to do about it? Let's implement those. Now, I think it's interesting to note that afterwards, you have to say that the benefit of using the device outweighs the risks. The company has to take ownership. The company has to say, yeah, we've looked at our device. Maybe we identified some risks. That's, of course, there's risks with everything. We identified that the benefit of using the device outweighs the risks. That really comes here at the evaluation of overall residual risk. To really say, we own our risk, we've mitigated what we think is appropriate to mitigate as a part of this risk management process over here. The company signs off on it, and then we're gone with our life, right? We've got post-production activities, things that have to be done as the devices are being produced. There's sometimes information that has to be collected and reviewed and actions that have to be taken, which is exactly how GE ended up where they are now, taking action on this. So that's great. They had identified that there was a risk. They mitigated the risk. They put a ball screw in there. But if we go back to the other document, remember what we said here. There's two things going on. If the ball screw fails, well, why might it fail? Something was overlooked there. And also some of them, the safety key is missing. Let's get rid of some of our chaos on the screen here. If the ball screw fails and the safety key is missing, but it says also missing a safety key, some devices are missing a safety key. That means that the design was right, but it wasn't included in the manufacturing process. So this isn't just a design risk question that they're dealing with. This is a question also of manufacturing. Is the manufacturing process up to snuff? Are things being dropped? And so here I want to take you to what is called 21 CFR 820, which is, for those of you who already know, it's the good manufacturing practices, the current good manufacturing practices, also called the quality system regulation. It is part of Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations. It is called Part 820. Now, you don't want to memorize all the parts of the CFR or even all the titles of the CFR, unless that's your thing. And if it is, I don't know what to say. But this one's, if you're in the world of MedTech, medical devices specifically, this is really, really important to understand, really important to know. And if you've ever read something like ISO 9001 or are even familiar with that at all, this will look kind of similar. It's all about management responsibility and how to do audits and how to train your personnel, how to do design controls, document controls, purchasing controls, identification and traceability. Oh, interesting. Production and process controls is a part of this. Interesting as well, acceptance activities, non-conforming product, corrective and preventive action, as well as labeling and packaging control, handling, storage, distribution, and installation. Interesting. This could be an interesting one to look at. The ball screw failures may well be, we don't know, a design issue with these GE Healthcare devices. But given that some devices had the safety key and some devices didn't, you got to think that that's probably, but not assuredly, a manufacturing issue. Something missed in the manufacturing process. Is it that something wasn't controlled well enough here, production process controls? Was it not inspected correctly? The finished device acceptance, almost certainly you could say, well, the finished device acceptance should have checked that, but it wasn't there. Unless it's actually a distribution and installation problem. Because maybe the parts were there, but somehow that box didn't make it to the facility where this half-ton machine was installed. And if it didn't, then maybe it was just an installation problem. Maybe the design was correct. Maybe the finished device acceptance was correct at the factory. And maybe it just didn't all make it there in one piece and get installed. So maybe it was actually the installation problem of the installation technician. But this is all the kind of thing that with CAPAs, corrective and preventive action, need to be worked through. And in this case, with some FDA warnings involved as well. So it's a very interesting case study. The thing that catches your eye about it certainly is the fact that you've got this half-ton machine, risk of detector fall that may injure patients. And that's really important and something that I'm glad they're on. I'm glad no one has been hurt. They're doing the right thing. It is a class 1 recall, the most serious type of recall, because you could literally drop a half-ton on a patient. But as we dig under the hood of that, I do think it's interesting how, for any of us engaged in MedTech development, we get quickly back to risk analysis, quickly back to mitigation of hazardous situations. And those mitigations, sometimes they're design related, sometimes they're manufacturing related, sometimes they're installation related. But this gives you pause. Now, GE can deal with this. GE can handle this. But I'd encourage any small startups to just think about this risk analysis and realizing that it's not all just about saying, oh, our device is safe. But realizing when you get to that field, a small startup usually can't sustain errors like this. Or if they do, it costs them an awful lot more investor money. So just be on the lookout, be thinking about your own process, wherever you are in this ecosystem. How does risk management relate to what you're doing? How does the risk management process inform what you're doing? And I think you might even find a few things that could get you and your team thinking. Next up, a little update on the Philips CPAP and BiPAP recall. You're familiar with this, the number of Philips machines that have been recalled on the basis of foam breakdown. Medical device reports updated February 9th. There's a bunch of new information here, new MDRs. That's not the same as the MDR in Europe, just so you're clear. Medical device reports in the US. Associated with the breakdown or suspected breakdown of this polyester-based polyurethane foam. The recall has been going on since June of 2021. We're going to scroll way down here to some of the new information because it's really in the medical device reports, and unfortunately, it's not necessarily good news here. Also, if you happen to be watching this and you haven't been part of this recall, this is the web link right here, fda.gov, and you probably need to do a web search on it to get further than that, but to voluntarily submit reports on this if you happen to be watching and you happen to have not reported something that's happened. Philips submitted 30 MDRs between 2011 to April 2021. So it was going on for 10 years. There were no reports of patient injury or death. But then 2021, they started to say, we're going to do something about it. This is a staggering number. Since April 2021, the FDA has received more than 98,000 MDRs. And this is really sad, including 346 reports of death, reportedly associated with the PEPUR foam breakdown or suspected foam breakdown. Most of the reports came here in the May 1st, 2022 through July 31st, 2022 timeframe. But only 45 deaths. That's actually kind of interesting because the number of deaths reported was sort of ticking along here, and it actually dropped a little bit here. And now it's actually spiked back up with many fewer MDRs received. So that's interesting. I don't know how we feel about that. It's really hard to say. So we're just reporting what we know here, that 346 reports of death right now out of about 100,000 foam breakdown reports. So yeah, just not great news. This again comes back to questions. We don't know all the details of why the foam breaks down, but certainly they're exposed to a lot of stuff. And while it is required to think about the potential for misuse of your product, there are an awful lot of this is just Gene speculating. So I just got to say this is not Into Being. This is not Philips. This is not FDA. This is just me speculating for a moment. But the number of substances out there that get onto devices, right? If I sit there and I tell you, only clean your device with a specific soap, you know that people are using other things. You know they're taking out the rubbing alcohol and spraying it on there. You know they're getting out the simple green or whatever. I don't know, just whatever is at hand. So you got to wonder a little bit when it comes to that, what kind of breakdown are you getting from things that weren't anticipated? But leaving that aside, it all comes back to risk analysis. It's an unmitigated risk, a risk that was not mitigated soon enough, not caught soon enough, and is now resulting in a significant number of injuries and deaths, which is really tragic. So once again, focus coming back to risk analysis. I encourage you. You know, it's interesting as we've worked with any number of companies during Into Being's life. Risk analysis for us usually means medical device risk analysis, FDA, CDRH risk analysis and mitigation and risk management. But risk management, if you've ever worked for a big company, is a huge part of project planning for big companies as well. How do we mitigate the risk of this project going sideways? And so, you know, you don't want to just be a worrywart all the time. But risk analysis is part of the business of bringing innovations to people, all the way from early project risk to specifically what kind of hazards are being presented to the patient. So I think we're talking about that a lot today, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good part of what we like to talk about here. All right, and our third news item today, we called it EU official. I don't know if that's a thing. They said Facebook official was a thing. European Parliament votes to extend the MDR transition period. When we were in Germany in November, it became very, very clear that MDR was killing Europe. It was a complete disaster. I'm going to take you first to this section right here. European Health Commissioner Stella Kyriakides, I'm going to say, first proposed the postponement late last year. That's about when we were hearing all this, to avoid tens of thousands of medical devices going off the market because they could not meet MDR requirements. Tens of thousands of devices. And that's exactly what we heard. We heard folks coming to us saying, Gene, we want to come to the US because we can't sell our device in Europe anymore. Well, the good news is it looks like that is going to change for a little while. By a 537 to 3 vote, that's pretty overwhelming, with 24 abstentions, the European Parliament adopted a proposal by the European Commission to delay the transition period. I don't know if this, I don't know if this article says the dates. Elsewhere, we noted that it's actually going out, I believe it is to 2027 or 2028. So it looks like there's going to be, don't quote me on this yet, we'll get you this. Here it is, yep. Deadlines are set when the conformity assessment process for MDR needs to be completed, which is the end of 2027 for high-risk devices and the end of 2028 for lower-risk devices. Obviously, get in the queue sooner. So this isn't if you're thinking about Europe, this isn't oh, don't worry, you have all the time in the world. It's, we're going to give you a little bit of time here. Don't get out of the line, or in Europe they say queue, right? Don't get out of the queue. Because you got to get this done by the end of 2028 if you're a low-risk device, and the end of 2027 if you are a high-risk device. So there's your two dates. And if you're working on a new product, you know, this is not too soon to be thinking about this once you're on your path for the US, if you're in the US. This would be a good time to start thinking about Europe too, because it sounds like they're gonna push this out. What it's not clear, they're talking about like legacy devices. Are there ways that we could substitute in legacy devices? I still don't think they have this figured out. I don't think they actually really know what they're doing. I don't know if adding 4 years is going to solve the problem or not, but that's certainly the direction they're going. At least they're kicking it out. At least any number of friends that we met late last year are not, they can keep selling for a little while longer. This was an interesting comment here. To quote the well-versed IVDR guru Sue Spencer on the IVDR delay from 2022, don't take your foot off the gas. That's the admonition here. Don't stop. Don't take your foot off the gas. And it seems to be equally applicable now to the MDR delay. So this is not a statement that you can wait. It's a statement that you can keep moving forward with some hope that you'll be able to make it through without getting your device pulled off the market. But that was just the other day there. So some good news, or at least neutral news, coming out of Europe. And that's our news for today. So we were at MD&M West in Anaheim, California. I think it was about a week ago now. And we had a great time there at the Michigan booth. The state of Michigan, MEDC, put up a booth and hosted 8 companies there at little kiosks. There's another 70 companies that were on the floor. We're going to bring you some video of just a handful of the Michigan companies at the Michigan booth next week. So in the video you're about to see, I allude to that coming up next. That'll be coming up next week. But what happened there, beyond just giving you a tour of the floor, and we chatted with Chris Witham of Motion Dynamics, a wonderful West Michigan supplier of small parts, small wire-formed parts. Mark got a chance to chat with him briefly. I walked part of the floor with Mark Ignash, the Senior Sector Development Director at MEDC, who is responsible for this trade mission, this trade show, MEDC's delegation. But as we went through our interview, we had sort of a fun time. I hope you like it. It may be the vomit comment for the camera work there, so I apologize for that in advance. But we walked the floor. We had a conversation with Chris Witham. We walked back to the Michigan booth. We talked about the setup there and what MEDC is doing to get Michigan companies in front of the world at the MD&M trade show. But then we had a very interesting segue because Mark and Stephen Rapundalo, the CEO of MichBio, continued the conversation talking about an index that is being created, and the preliminary version is out now, created at MEDC's request by MichBio to index entities in the Michigan MedTech ecosystem. A lot of people have been asking for this for a long time. And now we're getting it thanks to MEDC and MichBio. That partnership there is yielding not only an index, it's not just, hey, here's a company, you could go talk to these 400 companies, but rather looking in a detailed breakdown by segment. Here are the standards they follow. Here are the services that they offer. Here are the types of devices they work on, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's creating a really wonderful resource. We're still in the early days of it, but a bifold version of it was available at the trade show. If you'd like a version, you can get in touch with MichBio at michbio.org. But it's a very, very interesting thing. I think it's going to be great for the ecosystem because it's going to be referenceable. All of us can reference it and see who's doing what resources are available. And over time, people start to learn that, which will just continue to make Michigan a MedTech ecosystem hotbed where things can get done because people can find other people. So the phone book for the ecosystem is coming. But I hope you enjoyed this wide-ranging interview with Mark Ignash, Chris Witham, and with Stephen Rapundalo, CEO of MichBio. Enjoy. We're here at MD&M West in Anaheim, California. I'm here with Mark Ignash. He's the Senior Sector Development Director for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We're out on the show floor. We're going to say hi to a Michigan company, and then Mark, I'm hoping you're going to tell me all about our booth, this trade show, and just all the cool things happening at MEDC. But I see one Chris Witham over here from Motion Dynamics Corporation.
Good morning.
Morning. Good to see you, Chris.
Nice to see you.
How's the show been going for you?
The show has been great. We're back to, I would say, pre-COVID activity.
It's phenomenal.
Yesterday was steady, busy all day long, and actually look forward to an extremely good day today. Typically Wednesdays are the best.
That's fantastic. So tell us, what do you have here? What's Motion Dynamics all about?
Well, we service the medical device industry. The vast majority, like over 90% of what we do is for medical devices.
Okay.
And we tend to focus on neuro and cardio applications. And so, again, it's wire-based products, tight tolerance, very small. That's what we do.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
So,
Appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Take care.
So tell us, this is our third year, I think, MEDC's third year
Yes.
doing the MD&M show. Tell us a little about the idea behind it and how
Yeah.
we got here.
Yeah, so the whole vision of this is how do we, as a state, get to both national and international, but in this case a national domestic presence that really elevates and highlights our industries. And in this case, life sciences and more specifically medical device. And as we'll see as we get to the booth, there's actually a cross-section of a few different industries that cross into this.
Because a lot of vendors can work in both things,
That's,
many different
that's
things.
right.
Yeah.
And one thing with a lot of Michigan companies that many don't realize is you can be, and many are, very diversified. So you have automotive that's also doing medical, that's also doing aerospace. You see these things and you just don't always know it. So we've got a good cross-section here of folks that are in different types of manufacturing that service medical, they service automotive and things of that nature. But yeah, that's really the vision of this is how do we take a piece of Michigan out, plant it somewhere else, and really show the national audience and global audience what Michigan can bring to bear in terms of our supply chain and our state and our offerings.
It's really cool, these companies that are willing to participate. Now, there's a bunch on the floor. Motion Dynamics, just one example of that.
Right.
Is some 70-plus Michigan companies here on the floor. But 8 at the booth, which we're going to get to here in just a second, and you're going to take us on a tour of.
Yeah.
Tell us about those companies.
Yeah, so we've got a good cross-section of folks that are really almost primarily medical device based. We've got HealthMark, we've got MediSurge, working on some really innovative different products and technology and polymers that can serve several markets. We've got
Keystone's there.
Keystone, Innovatech, which works on 3D printing technologies.
Here we are at the booth too. This is give everyone a shot of the 2023 MEDC booth. You're gonna take us around here.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, Keystone, HealthMark, MediSurge. We've got Innovatech you mentioned,
Right.
and of course Schertle, North America, Humanetics. And Evosys, that was a cool one. The laser welding took me back to some of my roots as an engineer in the microfluidics industry. So
and it's fascinating.
Really
that,
cool offerings.
They work in a lot of automotive, and they're actually standing up a presence at more in medical. And we were talking, and they said this is a fantastic opportunity for them to bridge into the market.
Into the market.
Yeah.
Well, take us on a tour of this booth, Mark. It's a really lovely booth. I know it gets better every year.
Yeah, we try.
Walk us
yeah.
around, show us what we got.
Sure. So. Obviously, we've got the 8 different companies here up front. This is kind of the helm, right? So this is where folks are greeted. We share with them, what this is about.
Got some folks up here visiting.
Yeah, we find that a lot of companies show up and they didn't realize Michigan has such a presence here, so we explain the why. But then a lot of folks that have a Michigan tie, they lived in Michigan, they want to move back to Michigan, which starts a conversation, and believe it or not, many times turns into a business development opportunity. So this
We've
is
had
really
any number of people show up at our little kiosk going, I just wanted to reconnect with Michigan. We'll bring them up here to the front and introduce them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, last year I think we had over 200 individual connections alone that just came to the booth to discuss what this is about. So again, we have our 8 companies that are able to use this space. This is their home base for the week. And as we go we'll go through the middle here and towards the back. We've got kind of our screen. This map right now is just leveraging the folks we have here, some of our academia, things like that. But also, one of the pieces that when we were designing this, we were very intentional on when you come into this space, you want to feel like you're entering Michigan, and there's that story along what we're doing here. So on the right side here, we've got a profile of Grand Rapids, right? And
This is Grand Rapids over here.
It's back there.
There it is.
There it is.
Got it over there.
And then on the other side, we've got Detroit.
Nice.
And so the story we're really telling is that for many folks, there's either a perception or just a misconception that, you know, we're a one industry state, we're a one city state, and we really have, you know, you can go from Detroit to Kalamazoo to the Upper Peninsula. We've got industry across the state, and so that's what we're really trying to tell with this booth, with this space, and with, you know, the intentional design that we've built into this.
That's awesome, and I know that there's been a lot of effort going into mapping and aggregating those companies,
Yes.
finding them, and going to join you here now is Stephen Rapundalo, the
Yes.
CEO of MichBio. Tell us about some cool new efforts that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Stephen, really quick, introduce yourself, and I'll kind of get into what we're working on here together.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great partnership with the MEDC, with this event and a few others like Medica. And, you know, we've tried to identify ways that we can better connect the ecosystem,
Right.
have a better sense of who's in that ecosystem, what their capabilities and assets are, so we can do better B2B connections and facilitations. Some of this, you know, was an outgrowth of the pandemic, when everybody was scrambling to identify who could do what for PPE and other things. And I think we all sort of realized that we really didn't know who
Right.
was out there and what they could or could not do. And so I've been thinking about, you know, for a number of years, let's go reach out to our ecosystem and all the med device companies and others and better understand their attributes, those capabilities, and try to put it in a format, multiple formats that could be deployed in various events like this one, or in a sort of a directory, so that folks on the outside could find companies
Right.
that they can work with in Michigan. Lord knows I've heard enough over the years from our companies, and even from you, Gene, about, well, I need XYZ, and I ended up going wherever to find it, and I would answer, well, why didn't you just go down the street? And the answer would always come back, well, I didn't know that was there. All right, so how do we bring that, you know, supply together with demand? And so we embarked on a rather massive undertaking to, at least initially, to take our 400 plus medical device companies as identified by the federal NEXT codes and try to validate who they are, and then begin to approach them and extract information from them about their capabilities, their attributes, and so forth. As we began that over the last, 6 months or so, in advance of this event, we asked ourselves, well, how about we take all the exhibitors from Michigan here at this event and take that same approach so that we can make that available at the show for folks that are visiting the Michigan booth, deploy it to the Michigan companies that have their own booths, and so forth. And so that's what we came up with here, working in tandem with the MEDC. The heart of it is, of course, is this. And I got to give credit to my device up in the Grand Rapids area, because really they kind of have had this matrix model for quite some years. It's not as detailed, and I know this is kind of small print in that, but we ask companies to identify themselves as what kind of company they are. Are they a contract manufacturer? Are they an OEM? Are they a service provider? And so forth. Then the other thing we want to know about them, I mentioned attributes. Are they FDA registered? Do they have any kind of ISO certification? Do they have Metacred certification? And then most importantly, I don't know, there must be about 30 odd categories here, everything from assembly, the clean rooms, the clinical trials, to foams, injection molding, welding, all sorts of stuff, tool and die. And as you can see, for each company, they've self-identified what their capabilities are. And this really, I think, is, from what we've heard already, the response has been great.
Yeah, it has.
Obviously, this is only a partial list of the exhibitors that are here from Michigan. There's probably around 70. Needless to say, not everybody responded, but we're going to persevere and keep calling them. And because for me, this is meant to be an online, long-term type of resource, and it's meant to be a living entity that we're just going to keep building on. One of the things that I'd love to do above and beyond what I just described is then also turn around and ask companies, which probably wouldn't be publicly available, but ask them, what kind of machines do they have? What kind of capacities and volumes? So that, going back to that notion when we had the pandemic, so that if we need something specific, we know exactly who to go to, and we know that they have the capacity to either pivot, expand, whatever, to meet the needs and not have to go rely on somebody else domestically or even worse, internationally.
Right.
So, I think it's been a great exercise. Obviously, good partnership with the MEDC that, we've helped each other vet, discuss how best to present this, and so forth. But again, this is just the beginning.
Tip of the iceberg, right?
We're going to, as I sat here during the event, what else can we do? What's the next step? I mean, when we get back, we'll do a mass general mailing and say, look, here's what we did. If you wish to, complete this, whether we've contacted you already or not, because there's so many more suppliers that we don't know about. Right? The OEMs we know because they're coded by the federal NEX codes as such, as a medical device company. The suppliers, many of them serve multiple industries. So we don't always know who's doing medical and who's not.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's many more hidden out there that would be very useful for this. And then in turn, we've already shared the raw data files with the MEDC so they can use it as they see fit, perhaps integrate it with the Pure Michigan Business Connect.
Yes, yep.
And now you have two statewide organizations that, are ready to help folks with their inquiries about, where can they get some support and needed capabilities right here or right there in Michigan.
Yeah, and you mentioned Pure Michigan Business Connect, and that's a resource we maintain at the MEDC that's designed really to facilitate those B2B connections and fill those gaps in supply chain. And that can be for Michigan companies that need suppliers. It can also be outbound if you got a company in another state that has a gap. Well, we want that deal flow to come into the state, and many times we've got those companies, some that we know, many cases we don't. So this effort helps us to really fill that so we can be responsive and say, oh yeah, you need injection molding, you need polymer-based products, you need, fill in the blank, we're gonna try to find it for you. And this helps to do that.
That's good.
That's awesome. Well, it's such a great resource. Stephen, thank you, and thank you, Mark,
Absolutely.
for that. I think it's sometimes it's a thankless work to do all the indexing that's necessary for these sorts of things, and to be able to, just put all the dots on the page. There's so many dots on that page, but each one represents something that it's truly meaningful. If a startup's out there looking for something and they say, I need X, well, now we're starting to have a place to be able to go and look for that and say, have you called these three companies? Which is huge.
And you're absolutely right. Admittedly, it's been painful because with the larger group of OEMs and such, just the sheer the validation that we've had to go through, to in fact validate who they are, where they are. In some cases, they have multiple facilities in the state. Before we can even begin to ask them, what it is that they do. Now, for the OEMs, the classification is going to be a little bit different, right? We're going to be asking them what therapeutic areas are they making products for, things like that. So there's going to be a difference between OEMs and suppliers. But yeah, trying to get this information from companies in general has been, I think we underestimated the task.
Well, and I remember at one point, one conversation I overheard was part of like the question of, do they do the thing, whatever the thing on the list is, versus can you get it from a third-party perspective, right? A company that maybe does their own sterilization but doesn't offer it outside. Well, it's good to know that's in the state, but it's also then not directly a resource. So I guess that's probably part of the discrimination that then ends up happening over time, is figuring out which of these are accessible in different ways.
Right, yeah. I mean, this, again, right, it's going to be a living sort of document, living entity that's going to morph and change as we hear from those that use it. And we just want to constantly improve it, and we want to make sure it's user-friendly. Otherwise, what's the point of going through all that effort and just having a static, document sitting somewhere? There's no point in it.
No point in using it. Right. Now, this may be premature, but how can somebody get a hold of this if they weren't here at the trade show, which you're handing them out at the front there? Is there a good way to get hold of this document today?
They can reach out to MichBio. We'll probably try to post it on our site somehow.
Okay.
This obviously will be a static
yes.
thing.
Page.
We've already caught a few omissions.
Oh, yeah.
We went and validated. We had with some of the companies who didn't respond, we weren't quite sure if they were just sales offices, because we listed anybody who was either based, headquartered in Michigan, or had facilities in Michigan. But in some cases, since they didn't respond, we weren't quite sure if those facilities were just merely sales offices. And we found that, in fact, some were, and so we're actually going to scratch some off the list because they don't apply. They
don't have a functional place in Michigan.
Right.
Well, this is very cool, Stephen. Thanks for explaining it. I'm really excited about the partnership, and obviously, when we talk to companies, it's like, wow, it's so nice to have a list like that, and we're excited for it. So,
yeah, appreciate it.
Beginning of a new era, a new dawn of a new era in Michigan.
Well, it's great. I don't know of anybody, certainly none of our sister organizations, that I've even contemplated something like this, much less embarked on a path to create it. But I think I'd like to think it's a valuable tool that we can deploy for everybody's benefit.
Absolutely is.
That's awesome. Well, I thank you both for your time today, for this wonderful booth and this trade show. And I think up next we're going to be showing some interviews that we pre-recorded with each of the companies here around the Michigan booth. We'll just do the spin here to show you, but a lot of great companies, and hope you can check them all out.
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Well, yes, indeed, it's a good resource, Stephen. It's a wonderful resource, and I think that the capacity of what it will do. I don't know if you got a view there. It's probably pretty small in the handheld video, but in that brochure, the number of categories broken down, each one of which, if you're looking for that thing, I'm going to go through and find the dot where it is, and I'm going to find what companies do it, and I'm going to go look them up, give them a call. At that point, it's just a matter of getting in touch with them, getting introductions, calling the front desk, whatever it is. So what a great resource, and it'll be fun to see how that expands. Hopefully, as that list grows, we can introduce some of those companies to you as well here on MedTech Crossroads. Well, as we always do, as we come to the top of the hour, we'll give just a moment. If there's anybody who has an announcement or has an event coming up, has a question, feel free to raise your hand in the Zoom room, or if you are on YouTube watching, thanks to our YouTube viewers, all of our new YouTube viewers, you can chat there, and we are watching the chat there as well. Perhaps there's a question you have. Perhaps there's an event you'd like to announce. I heard this week, actually, from a viewer who had been going back and taking notes on previous shows. He's got a medical device he's working on. He's trying to learn as much as he can. He was taking notes on previous shows, and he screen shared his notes, and it was like, yeah, I was watching this show, and I learned this, and I was watching this show, and I learned that, and he had it all noted down there. So glad these are of use to people. If you have any questions, it can be any general medical device, FDA topic, our local ecosystem. You need to get connected to somebody, feel free to ask a question. No harm in that, and we would love to hear from you. So we'll give it just a minute more in case there are any hands in the Zoom room or any chats on YouTube. Not seeing any just yet. So with that, I want to thank you for being part of MedTech Crossroads today. We'll look forward to next week. Hopefully it's a little bit warmer. Spring is just around the corner. I'd like to tell myself that anyways. Have a great day.